This episode may contain language or discussions that may be offensive or triggering. Refer to the episode summary for details. Welcome to She.Confidential podcast. My name is Charlene Ketchum, and y'all, I'm so excited today. I am chatting with Ms. Vanessa from VagEsteem. She is a sex educator, and just if you are not following her on social media, you need to be following her. Before we started chatting, I was telling her social media is just hilarious, but educational and just really informative. So if you want to learn about just women's wellness, everything from pelvic health to your orgasms, what's normal, what's not.
Yes.
Is it supposed to be smelling like this? Is it supposed to feel like this? Men, if y'all want to learn about the bump and the grind and why the grind isn't all that good, please be following VagEsteem.
Yes.
It's at VagEsteem, so it's VAG and esteem, one word. VagEsteem, y'all.
Charlotte,
Follow her.
I just need you to be my brand manager because you just put all my parts. You just synthesize everything that I do all in one. And I thank you.
Wonderful. Yes. I'm telling you, I love your page. I don't think if it's a post on there that I haven't liked, it's because I was just broke down that day and just like overwhelmed with life.
Look, I can't get on social media right now. And I get it. I totally get it. But thank you. Thank you for having me and thank you for all your support, of course. I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you. So today our conversation is gonna be really like fluid because there's so much to talk about
For sure.
in the world of just being a woman and why people are so mad at us. You know, it's like everybody mad. Why are y'all in your feelings? And it's so interesting to me because for so long, women were put into these boxes and we
Yes.
could only be a certain way. And it wasn't just men putting us in those boxes, it
Mm-hmm.
was other women too. And if it wasn't coming from the church, it was coming from society
Yep.
as a whole, your family. And now women are saying, I'm good. You know, we got Simone Biles saying, nope, I'm leaving the Olympics because my mental health, my emotional health, I can't do all this nonsense right now.
And I
Like,
stand. I stand. Like when I saw Simone Biles today say like I just have to tap out. Like the first thing that came to me, Lovey Ajayi, she had made a meme of herself on her social media, and it was like her literally backing up from the desk and like leaving.
yeah,
And like the thing that came to me was like, we are not your mules. Like we are not your mules. We don't have time
nope,
for this. We don't have
nope.
time to be caring about everybody else but ourselves or breaking ourselves. And I think it's like the ultimate self care. And now I totally understand like why like Naomi and like I understand why she don't want to talk to the media. Like you gonna talk about me regardless. So it's like you talk about me if I don't want to talk to you. I take some time for myself. But then if I have a mental breakdown, then it's like look at the mental breakdown and like even being on social media for a few minutes today, I was just scrolling to see, what they were saying about Simone, and the headlines were like, Simone drops out, Simone's a loser. And I'm like, see, this is why they don't want to talk to y'all. They don't want to talk
Mm-mm.
to y'all because
No.
you write headlines that take out our humanity. And first of all, you in my business, and I don't like that. So,
And you don't have that right to comment on my emotional. Like, here's the thing, and I said this to somebody else the other day. People always go on, and it's a pet peeve of mine. Like, I've been
yeah,
trying not to rant about it on social media,
of course.
but I feel it coming
Yeah,
because I'm so sick of people telling folks what they should be able to take. It's like, oh, you're being too sensitive, or this person needs to toughen up. Everybody's in their feelings now. You don't have the right to tell another person what their capacity is because
that's right.
most of us are operating beyond it
That's right.
anyway.
That's right. That's right. And for me, it's like you're gonna talk regardless. You're going to talk regardless. If I show up, but then if I show up raggedy, if I show up because I'm
Hmm.
pushing myself, then that's gonna be what's being talked about. And I mean, yeah, these people are celebrities, but like we do this all the time in our everyday lives, showing up for people who don't show up for us, showing up for people when we are at our wits end and we don't know how to enforce boundaries and say like, you know what, this is definitely not about you. You know, I love you and support you and I show up for you in these other ways. This is what's happening for me. Hell, you gave me that grace, like because y'all, you don't know this, but this is like the third consultation, and Charlene has been like, hey, love, real, just I could feel the hey, love, the little hand on my back, like, all right, are you still down? But it's like I was able to come because you
Yeah.
gave me that space. I was able
Yeah.
to also communicate and say like, I life was life. I think that's what I emailed you. Like life is life
Yeah.
right now, and I
Yeah.
just didn't have the capacity to be
Hmm.
able to show up as my best self, look
Yeah.
alive,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
deliver when I'm depleted and I have other things going on. And so like I feel like I feel like all of this is just a lesson for us everyday people to just tap
Yeah.
out when it's time to. And especially, I think for Black women and Black women who are achieving, Black women who are in high visible spaces, to be like, yo, your work spoke for itself. Like, and now we can rest. And now
Yeah.
we will rest, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're like Simone Biles, like Simone Biles ain't gotta do another Olympics for the rest of her life if she
No.
does not want to. So
No.
I think the thing I found so courageous that she was like, I did it. And none of what happens here just like distinguishes who I am or diminishes the accomplishment I had because those accomplishments are still going to be there. And
Yeah.
I will rest and then I will come back when I'm ready. That's
If
it.
and when I'm ready. Well, you know they did the same thing to Serena.
Listen, when I tell you I wanted to fight, I wanted to. You would have
Yeah.
thought Serena was like my homegirl down the street. I was like, wait a second. Wait, like you heard this woman yelp on the court in pain, or I mean, I still know like exactly what happened, but like the clips that I seen, she looked like she was yelping in pain, and people
Yeah.
were still like dropping out. I'm like, okay, we can't win out here. We can't win because then if she pushed herself and then ruined her legs for the rest of her life, it would
Yeah.
have been like, this is too much. But even the way that they describe her is like being overbearing and brutish,
Yeah.
it's all exhausting. So I get why Naomi was like, I'm not talking to y'all. Talk to me
Yeah.
when I'm done, and then we can have a press conference.
If if then, I mean, I think Beyonce she rarely gives interviews now for the
Yeah,
probably for the same for
yeah,
the same reason.
yeah.
It's just people think they have the right, whether it's the media or your fans or
Hmm.
followers. Like I look at how some people comment on folks' social media pages, and I'll tell you that was one of the things that made me really nervous about doing this. Now my audience is small now, so I haven't encountered that.
Yeah,
And the thing about me in real life is I will check you. I will go there. And because before I know it, because it's like I'm a nice person, but if you're mean to me and I'm like, I didn't even warrant that. I try to understand some people
yeah.
are special and they're going through things and they just, this is their way of managing. But you're not gonna keep kicking in nonsense my way before I just kick it all back in your
Okay,
face.
okay.
So it's just we're expected to tolerate a lot. Like
Hmm.
a lot.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I feel that especially with the social media thing, I see people out here and I it's so funny because it's the same types of thoughts like I'm not gonna post about this yet, but people are being like real and I get it. It's not it's like which one comes first, the system or like the people in the system. But like I've seen people on social media be like, hey y'all, so sorry for being like not posting for 2 weeks. This ain't no real life. Like what like what are you talking about? Like take a break. Like, who cares? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
y'all, so sorry I haven't been able to like connect on what? Like, you don't, this is not real.
No.
This social media thing
And
is
I
not,
mean, and unless you're an influencer and you're actually getting paid to post, Instagram and Facebook aren't paying most people. So that's the other thing.
speak on it.
Like people like you, like your content is golden.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
And
And
I'm
it's
not
like,
getting paid for it, which is
yeah, people are giving away all this amazing
right.
content. And yes, it's to draw people into other things where there's paid services and all those things, but they're putting that's how Instagram is making money. That's how Facebook is making money because people are putting all this free golden content on
Mhm.
there and they get to manipulate an algorithm to bring and people break their
Oof,
necks to accommodate an algorithm. And
oof.
it's like, no, if I haven't been posting on the weekends because generally it's like my creative days. and I'm on social media, but I'm doing a lot of research, but I don't want the stress of like, okay, I have to come up with content on those days. Like at first, I was trying to just come up with content so
Yep.
that I could constantly be posting. And then I'm like, but some of this is not even good content. And so I decided I'm not going to post it unless I think it's good.
I'm not
If
gonna
it's not
post it
good,
until I feel like it. Yeah.
yeah, it's good and I feel like it. And it's so you'll get it when you get it until there's, and there's a space for other things. So
Yeah.
it's like if you're an influencer, those type of people, I get it. They need to be on there. They're getting paid to be on
Yeah.
there. But no one else is. And so I'm not going to apologize because I was absent. I'm not going to apologize because I was taking care of me, because that's what your platform is built on.
Yeah.
Women being empowered to be able to have those boundaries and say no. That includes rest.
All every day, all day.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
What inspired you to do this? I mean, how was VagEsteem born?
Such a good question. So, wow. Okay. So when I think about this, I'm like, oh, we'll have all these different touch points. So I would say that, Vagisil was a culmination of just all of my different experiences, starting with, being a kid and going to Catholic school. Like, I think that was like the crux of it, which is so funny because it's like, wow, Catholicism got me into this, but like I could never talk about this.
Right? That's why I was like, what?
So
Okay.
like my when I think about my identities, something that I will tell everybody is that I am a child of two Haitian immigrants. Like that is me at my core. Like both of my parents are from Haiti. I'm first generation in this country, and so being a first generation child for anybody is the child of immigrants. You have a lot of there's a lot of expectations put on you,
Mhm.
but there are also conversations that you don't ever have. And so I did not come from those households where we were just like openly talking about sex and openly like having these
Mhm.
types of taboo conversations. And to couple that, I'm Catholic. I went to Catholic school starting in third grade all the way up to 12th grade. And if anybody's ever been to Catholic school or any kind of religious school, a lot of times you do not get any type of sex ed. And so fifth grade is the first time I remember that we had like family life, and no one can ever tell you why it's called family life. But we got a book. We got a book that essentially had like Adam and Eve, and like essentially the teacher said something like, "Hey, don't commit sin like Adam and Eve." And that was kind of it. Like, what are you kind of comprehending at a 10 when you're 10 or 11 years old? And
Yeah.
then I went to high school, and I remember in high school I was encountering girls at the lunch table who didn't know about their parts. Like, I everyone who's like at
Mhm.
any of my high school reunions, they'll be like, you used to be at the table because we had like a Pepsi machine. I would take the three bottles and be like, we have three openings between our legs, and like kind of do like education like that, because we were having conversations like, oh, do we poop out of the same place? Do we pee out?
Mhm.
Not really understanding like our anatomy. And then I would say that I finished up high school and we had morality class. And in morality class, we had a nurse come in, and this nurse was like, listen, you are all about to go to college. I think morality class is the class they get you to take so that you don't bust it wide open when you get to college. So
Mm.
so this nurse comes in and she's like, well, couples that use condoms will break up within 4 to 5 years. Couples that use birth control, it doesn't work, they'll break up within 4 to 5 years. And like all of these different stats we're essentially we're around like, don't have sex before you're married. So I'm in the front because I am a scholar. I was in the front like, okay, what you said, 4 to 5. Okay, cool, cool, cool. I'm taking my notes, and I just that was it. Like that's all I knew. And so we didn't learn anything about healthy relationships. We didn't even learn about the anatomy of our bodies and like what they do. We didn't learn about consent, like all of these different things that you actually need to walk through the world and
Mhm.
protect yourself and assert boundaries, communication skills, like body
Yeah.
image. Like we didn't get any of that. So I show up at University of Maryland College Park. And I will never forget the day. Like I was walking across the quad with my friend, now husband. And at the time when we were friends, I was like, listen, like when I have sex, I'm never using condoms. I'm never using birth control. Like that stuff is terrible. And I don't want to break it with my boo. And he was like, who hurt you? Like what?
Oh, wow.
Get this from? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like it's literally what I learned at school, right? So I didn't know any different. And he was like, haven't you ever heard of like STDs and like HIV
Yeah.
and like pregnancy, like all of these different things? And like literally that day, like my mind was blown. And in hindsight, I was like, oh my gosh, like something was taken from me. Like that's the way I really feel about it. Like it
Mm.
was the adults' job around me to ensure that I was equipped, I was informed, and I was empowered to make whatever decisions that I
Yeah.
would eventually make in life. And I didn't have that foundation, and not having that information, which is why I'm so passionate about like all of the work that I do around sex ed, whether that's I like to say I do sex ed across the lifespan. VagEsteem is specifically for Black women and femmes and adults, but like I do teach children every day. I do teach high schoolers. I start sex ed with fourth graders. And when I think about like my why and why I continue to do this is the trajectory of my life could have been so totally different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
depending on the information. So like people are holding on to this life-saving information that
Yes.
can really determine a lot of different things that happen to you and they don't want to share it. And so that's like my
Yes.
adult looking back stuff. But yeah, once he told me that, I was like, STDs, like never, like it wasn't even
Wow.
there was nothing here, right? And so once that happened, it literally launched me on like this path to like essentially have these conversations with everybody. So I was joining all types of like sexual health groups. I was doing sex ed policy in college. I was doing all of the things.
Wow.
And I was an HIV educator. Like I kind of started off as an HIV educator. I've always been a community health practitioner. And then I started after grad school really like getting immersed in my career. And what I was noticing through a work project that I was doing, I noticed that I was doing a lot of barbershop and hair salon HIV education. And what I noticed was that the barbers were like, "Yes, come in, like let's talk about this." And then the beauty salons, it was very much like, "Why do you want to talk about this here?" And then when I really thought about it, the attitude that I was getting from
Mm-hmm.
beauty salon owners, the attitudes that I was getting, like literally getting the door like shut on me. Do not come in here.
Ooh.
Do not share that info. I started thinking like, wait, where do women come together in a space that's comfortable where they could just be themselves, be open, and just
Uh,
talk about their, sex, like just talk about their sex lives, talk about sexuality, and also learn because part
mhm.
of like my what I love to do is the education piece. I'm like, wait, you never got the education in high school. You never got the education in middle school. Now you're an adult and you still don't know what's happening. Like, where do we have a space where we can learn, grow, hear each other's stories, and really just be in community with one another? And so I didn't really think of anything. When I think about women talking about sex, I think about them going to their gynecologist. If they even feel comfortable talking to their doctor. So I'm like,
That part.
where's a non-medicalized place where we're just like with our homegirls and we're actually like, what, Charlene, you did that, girl? Why? Because I thought that something was wrong with me. We didn't have
Mm-hmm.
that. So I just decided to open up my home and I invited my homegirls over and I'm like, hey, so tonight we're going to talk about like, Vag 101. That was like my first class, like everything you need to know about your coochie. We was talking
Mm-hmm.
all about that stuff. And my homegirls started inviting their homegirls. They started inviting their homegirls. And so we would just have fun. And I would literally have my pen and pad out, like making activities for us to do, to learn. And people would be in my home till 2 o'clock in the morning. So that became a little much. So then I started doing community workshops and taking it out of my home. And then in 2016, I decided to start a podcast to have a greater reach. And also, if you know anything about organizing your own workshops, it's a heavy lift. So I needed like that other
Yeah.
fun lift to like get more people engaged. And
Mhm.
I love talking. So yeah, that's where VagEsteem started. Like just, workshops in my house and just going up from there. And I love it.
Wow. And I mean, your passion for it comes through in your teaching and just I mean, and I love your journey. I really love your journey and I appreciate your transparency. And just because a lot of times that shame is what keeps us from seeking that information.
Woo.
I
Feels
mean, it really is because it's like people feel like, oh, I was supposed to know that. It's the same reason why like people always say, why don't women tell their partners if they're not orgasming? Because they're embarrassed.
That's right. They
I mean,
think
because
it's
men
their
are,
fault. Yeah.
they think it's their fault. A lot of men are conditioned to think that, is that, oh, I'm so great that me doing this jackhammer stuff is supposed to work. They think everything they're doing is just right because they're mimicking what they saw
That's
in
right.
some video that they watched online.
That's right.
And so they don't know how to receive that. They don't know how to handle it. And the woman's like, something's wrong with me because nobody ever told them that
Absolutely.
that's common for women to not be able to orgasm through vaginal penetration alone. No one ever tells women those things.
You never learn that kind of thing, and nobody actually cares about us to tell us. So,
No, no, they don't. And it's so interesting because recently, so I've been having conversations with people about just this whole new push towards, I don't know how to describe it, but like the abstinence push. It seems to be coming back. And I'm very, part of me is surprised, but then part of me is not surprised
yeah,
because I think a lot of this push towards abstinence and just this hate that's being directed towards Black women in particular by certain social media personalities who I will not name, but KS. So there's some of them that are just hateful and disgusting, and I think a lot of that is in response to women being empowered. They're
mm,
saying, that we have women like Cardi and Megan who are like, I'm proud of all this ass. I'm
yes,
gonna get this. I'm gonna make sure I get mine before you get yours.
that's right.
You've got all these ordinary everyday women who are saying, and I saw this tweet that you had shared on your page. It said
Yeah,
have to now, and men
woo,
have to now get a woman to like them when
woo,
a lot of them aren't likable. And it's like that recognition of, oh, these women, they making their money. They ain't got to come after me for the dick because they can go get a dildo or a vibrator. So they don't need that. It's becoming more socially acceptable for them to
right,
do all of these things on their
right,
own. Where is my place in
right.
her life? And that makes them scared. And
Yeah,
so it gives a platform, it gives rise to a platform of these men who are wounded, who are very wounded.
they're not okay.
No, they're not okay. They're
I literally
not
have been,
okay.
I feel like I've been saying that all through COVID when I'm listening to some of the treatment of like some of the people in my life, like from their boyfriends, from their husbands. And I'm like, these men they are not okay. Like,
Mm.
and it's so funny with that tweet because people were like, that's my tweet. Like people were in those comments, like, go.
Girl, I saw that. I shared it with so many people. I said, "See this right here. This is it. This the one. This the one."
People were feeling that one, and I'm so glad that we were able to have a conversation because it was
Mhm.
one of those things that I had been kind of like thinking through. Like, of course, like, we had the tweet, but then like the caption. I always hated this metric of I'm in a relationship, so therefore all of my problems are solved. I am married, so therefore everything is great over here, and like this is everything that I've ever wanted and needed. And it's like when you actually talk to some people and you actually get into the thick of what's happening, you're like, yeah, no, I'd rather be by myself. I'd rather be by myself because you are with someone and you're still lonely.
Yes.
You are enduring so much stress. You're putting up with treatment that you do not deserve. But
Mm-hmm.
it's because we want to. Even today, I was talking to a girlfriend, and she was telling me that one of her homegirls was essentially staying in a marriage because she was like, it's I what did she say? She said something like, I put in too much work. I'm too old to go back now, and too embarrassed. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to go back and tell people. Like, people are gonna wonder why. And I had to look at her like, you need to go tell your homegirl that there's nothing embarrassing about leaving a situation that no longer serves you. You're sitting here embarrassed. Meanwhile, the people that you know are in long-term committed relationships. They're miserable. Their hair is falling out. Their
Yeah.
partners, yeah, they're there, but are they supportive? They're there taking up space, but are they helping you? Do you feel like an equal? They're there, but like, are you the one that's doing all the emotional work? Are you the one that's doing all the physical labor just to say that you got somebody at home? Like, no. And I feel like more and more people are saying, all people are saying, you know what? That ain't it. That's not the kind of life that I envision for myself. And I don't want to sign up for that. And so I constantly have to, like, sometimes I feel like the stuff that I'm saying is ordinary. It's just very like, here it is, like common sense, do it. But sometimes people need to hear, like, ain't
Yeah.
nothing to be embarrassed about. Like, you got out of the situation which you needed, you tried your best, it's no longer serving you. Why are you suffering? Get out of it. And I always say struggle love is not your get out of that. Like, do you know how many people are trying to be up in between the thigh meats and you wasting time with this person? Get out of here. Like,
Okay. But we've glamorized it. I mean, it's glamorized. So many people, and I have that conversation with women all the time. They're like,
yeah.
well, you talk to anybody that's been married a long time, they'll tell you they've been through a lot. And I'm like, but you don't
Yeah,
have to choose that.
a lot. Like, and that's, see, now thank you for saying that, because when I hear that, like, people say it's a lot, no one ever tells you. There'll be, I think it was when Jada and Will, like, when she had her whole entanglement thing,
Oh yeah.
she said some stuff where I was just looking at her like, they were like, we die together, we ride together, bad marriage for life. And I was like, I can't, no,
So unhealthy. So unhealthy.
no,
So unhealthy.
get that away from me. But I think that since we don't know what is, like, when they say, like, for richer, for poorer, for, good times, whenever you hear old Americans just like,
Hmm.
you got your bad times and your good times,
Yeah.
people don't tell you what the bad times are. Like, bad times are like, wow, we really persevered after my mother's death.
Yeah.
Wow, like, when we were in financial straits because I lost my job.
Yeah.
Da. Like, these are the ups and downs
Yeah.
we talking about. We're not talking about this man took you from here to there, dragged your self esteem, dragged you back, had a baby on the side. That's not. We're not. You ain't got to
We don't talk about
persevere
that.
to do that.
Mm-mm.
You don't have to. But like,
Mm-mm.
it's these blanket romanticized statements that we want to be out with, we want to throw out there without giving people the proper parameters. Like, when we say he's getting on my nerves, I mean, wow, you keep eating up all these chips and dropping your drawers on the floor. That's them the problems I'm trying to have. Those are the problems I'm trying. These are the problems we talk
Yeah.
about. We're not talking about totally left you depleted
Mhm.
and left you as a shell of yourself, and now you gotta rebuild, and kept you isolated from your interest and you becoming a better
Mhm.
person.
No.
I don't know where they do that at. We're not doing
No.
that no more.
No, no more. I mean, and I'm glad you said no more because we glamorize a lot of our grandparents, the way they lived. We'll say, back in the day, and my friends would tell you, I say this all the time because we say back in the day, the man paid all the bills and did this and that. And I said, but look at the price the woman paid. That man probably had a family 2 blocks over.
Ma'am, don't. Oh,
It is, people don't want, we had it all in my family. It's, I ain't gonna name people names and stuff, but it was ridiculous. And
yeah,
so it's like we have to be really careful when we even quote marriage stats from back in the day because all those marriages were not desirable ones or
yeah,
shouldn't have been desirable
yeah,
ones. Let's talk about, I mean, the domestic violence and things like that were happening in those marriages. So we have to really be careful when we start talking about the good old days
yeah.
because they weren't, when you get to the details, they weren't all good.
And you are so right, and we romanticize this stuff, and I feel like that's what we do this all the time. We romanticize these very blanket statements, or we just look at the way something occurred without actually getting into the weeds. Whenever I hear people say like, "Oh, my nana said don't never go to bed angry." No, sometimes you need to go to bed angry because you were tripping, and that sleep helps you get up the next day and be like, "Oh, whoa, I was out of line," or I had a chance to like calm down. And then I think this thing with like, oh, they don't do it. They don't, you're not trying to stick with nobody no more. That's not the way it used to be. And it's like, yeah, because of the financial situations that a lot of women were in, and economic situations. And like somebody on that same post that we're talking about, somebody commented like, 35 years ago, I tried to apply for a home loan and they wouldn't give it to me because I didn't have a husband. Like,
Yeah.
people couldn't do things without men.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah. And then, yeah. Who else is gonna help me raise these 12 other kids that we had? And just because your grandmama had 12 kids doesn't mean she wanted 12 kids. Like,
Hello.
let's get this absolutely right. And these people who are comparing themselves to their grandfathers, I'm like, but you pay no bills.
See, and see, that's the part right there. When they
You
want to
pay no
start talking
bills.
about the woman, like, okay, back in the day, women did this. Okay, but let's talk about what you're doing because you're not doing a third of what
First
the
of all, your
million.
income can't support all of these people in this household. You don't know how to fix anything. You are not. Your grandfather knew how to do a little mechanic. Like you don't have those skills. So who? Back in the day, what? Back in the day, what? You better learn and cultivate some skills now. Like, what? No. But it's to me, it's like when you romanticize. Yes, are there people's grandparents who are happy and like yada yada yada? Absolutely.
Yeah,
But like what you're saying, which I think is like a broader picture, we all know the grandmas and aunties, mine included, who had a whole, person had a whole, your spouse had a whole family on the side, and you
yeah,
didn't even know about it until they showed up at the funeral, unless they came home and dropped that baby on your lap. And to me, when you do that stuff, you dishonor the
yeah,
legacy and the resilience of our grandmothers and the women who were in these situations, who felt like they can't leave, and culturally
yeah,
also at the time, yes, with all the ridicule that they probably would have got, that they would have received,
yeah,
they probably did not feel empowered to leave. The financial ability to be able to leave, they did not have that. So it's like, you're right. We got to take a step back and just, for me, it's cultivate the relationship in the life that you want. You don't have to mirror it off of like, that's the way they did it. How do
yeah,
you want to do it? Because there's also people who don't want to be in monogamous relationships. Maybe the
right.
lifestyle, maybe the life you want has you luxuriating with 5 different relationships, and that's what it is for you. Some people don't need a partner that pays for anything. They just want companionship. Like, what is it that you need? And think about that and claim that and walk in that. And I think sometimes we're trying to like fit ourselves and mold ourselves after other things that we see without actually saying like, does this suit me? Do
Yeah,
I need this? Do I want this? Some people don't want to be married. Some people don't want to have kids. Like, that's totally cool, but
yeah.
be authentic in that, and know that it is totally fine to claim that. And these people who are talking, they don't pay your bills.
They don't pay your bills, and when you're dying from heart disease, when black women, number one silent killer of us,
Okay.
it's like, are they gonna help you then? Because all that suffering, that's what it does. It
Okay.
kills you. So, like, no, and it's so crazy. I saw a post. I think it was on a black marriage one, but they were talking about some cheaters, and one of the people commented, and she said, "Well, a lot of these folks should be polyamorous, but they're walking around here trying to be monogamous because that's what
Okay.
everybody told them they're supposed to be." And I was like, "Tell them, sis." I mean, and see, that's why the work that you do is so important
Yeah.
because a lot of people are walking around and they don't know that they have options,
Yeah.
and I know that what. disconnects a lot of people is the religion,
Mm,
because you're brought up in the church and you don't have options.
right,
You don't have options, you don't have proper education.
right,
Typically, if you're just relying on the church just for your information, it's you're not going to get the full picture typically.
for sure,
Some of that's changing a little bit,
for sure,
but it's if you don't have that information and you don't know
right,
that you have options,
right,
you're forced to make everybody else miserable while you're being miserable yourself.
right, right. And I think to that point, you make such a good point. It's breaking because I often get that question too, like, oh man, like, how did you get out of that box? And like, when you really think about it, when we are really invested in ourselves, you have to have certain conversations with yourself. So a conversation I had to have with myself is, wait a second, does God really hate me? For is God like what kind of God do we think we have? I mean, and again, depending on where you grew up,
Yeah.
I personally, when I think about like God, I'm just like, are you really sitting up there with like a checklist? Like, mm, no, like,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe that. Like everything that we learned, I was like, this I need to interpret this for myself
Yes.
because
Yes.
there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of like projecting. And if I really believe that that I am made in God's image and likeness, and I am a literal child of God, then why would God hate me so much? Like, why would I hate like any of this? And so I had to do my own work to kind of discover what this means and what my relationship and what spirituality and what religion means to me, and go with that, because everyone is trying to push their thing, but everybody, I feel like the people that push the most, some ain't right, some ain't right.
Girl, what is it? The thing, the ones who are protesting the most are usually the ones who are carrying the most shame and doubt.
Okay, I don't have time for it. So yeah,
No,
I think it's important for people to get right and develop and create what all of this means to them, and do their own research. There's too much stuff out there and too many interpretations to not sit and really like do some critical thinking around your own relationship with God, shame, and how that will literally wreak havoc on your life and your self-esteem.
absolutely. Because across the board, every religion believes God loves us. God wants you to be healthy. God wants you to be happy.
Yeah,
And that starts with that education because
yeah,
even when you spoke earlier about how you were and you doing drawings to educate your classmates about, okay, this is what our female anatomy looks
yeah,
like. A lot of us don't know that. And so when there is an issue, we don't know. I mean, I said to somebody once, this was in college,
yeah.
you're supposed to take a mirror and look, because the person said, well, how do you know if something looks wrong? I mean, who's looking at their vagina? And I'm like, well, you're supposed to.
You're supposed to look at it.
You get and she's like, well, how are you gonna look? I'm like, you get a mirror. And she's like, well, that's gross. I said, it's yours.
Well, what's
How is
gross about it?
something?
That's the interesting part. What is gross about it? That's the thing that I always ask people. Like, okay, so tell me what's gross, and it's like the look of it compared to what? Yeah, compared to what really? Because I'm like, have y'all seen penises? Like, they're not cute either, y'all. Like,
Yeah, yeah. It's all programming.
yeah,
And so how do you help women overcome that particular hurdle? Because we often, like when it comes to talking about anything related to vaginal health and periods, it's like we don't talk about that. Like we don't. I think there was some outcry because there was a commercial that actually showed like a pad with
mm,
blood. And I think they were talking about period poverty,
yeah.
and people got really upset about it. It's like,
It's weird.
really? Are we
So
really still there?
it's
Really?
we are still there, and there's day by day, minute by minute, I keep forgetting because every day I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna retire from this sex ed game, and I'm
You
gonna
gonna be
be
doing
a
this when you 80.
photographer. I'm gonna, do bird watching or something. And then you realize that there is more and more and more to do. And I think when it comes to like embracing like being on the journey essentially of building your VagEsteem, and I believe VagEsteem is building the confidence of and in your vulva and your vagina. And so for me, it is the root. When we build up confidence in that, when you have confidence in your vulva, when you have confidence in your, your sexuality, you ain't gonna be taking just any old thing. You ain't gonna be taking any old treatment. You ain't gonna be not speaking up and advocating for your pleasure. Nor are you going to neglect your body and not get tested, not get it checked out, not do your past smears. Like the full, I feel like everything emanates from that, right? And so that does require to, like you're saying, take a look. And that's why for me, anytime that I start when I do VagEsteem workshops in person, all around the room we have pictures of different vulvas all around. And for those who are like, what's a vulva? Vulva are all the parts that you see on the outside when you just look down. Like when you look down or take a mirror, that's a vulva. Vagina is the internal part. And so it's important for me for people to see themselves, right? Because people with penises don't always have these issues. Like, yeah, there's other issues that they have, like size and, performance and stuff like that. But they've seen it because they're constantly in touch with it. They got to shower, they got to, take their pants down, like they got to go to the bathroom. Like they're more in touch with what's happening with their bodies. Whereas you have to go looking and actually go look at it. And I always tell people, when you look and when you look at your body overall, not just down, looking at your vulva, but when you're looking at your body, for some reason in our society, we are obsessed with finding something wrong. And I feel like we're obsessed with finding something wrong because the way that we're socialized and brought up as women, girls, and femmes is, ooh, you doing too much if you're confident in yourself. So in order to be humble, you need to be like, oh, my braids are actually a little crooked. They ain't that fly. Oh yeah, girl, all that lipstick. Yeah, thing. Girls only $1. Like we always have to find a caveat or always find a way to like make the thing not so great. And so when we look at our bodies, I always advise people, look at your body without any shame. Just look at it. And when you feel that negativity start to creep in, like, look at that dip, it's time to change that around and find something else. Even if you have to, I don't like to say fake it till you make it, but focus on what is it? Because it can't all be bad. And then when you think about why is it bad, why is it bad? What are you comparing it to? Are you comparing yourself to beauty standards that were never meant to affirm you? Are you comparing yourself to people's bodies that are not your body? Like that's not your body. You don't even know. You don't even know what this person like. You don't know nothing about that person. Are you comparing yourself to magazine covers where these people are being altered on the covers? Like, why is it bad? Why can't you just look and just be like, all right, hey, them titties, they sagging, but they mine. Like,
Yes.
why must we? Oh, and that's the question I keep asking me. Why must we always find something wrong? So I think on our quest, I think for me, I always think that information is always key. Like, especially when it comes to our vulvas and our vaginas, then I think it's the number 2 fastest growing surgery is labiaplasty, where people are getting their lips down there cut, or they're getting them shaped differently, they're bleaching them. And what I always tell people is that, because I have to bring out my props. What I tell people is that like these lips, because we have our outer lips, we have our inner lips, but these lips for some people hang out longer than these outer lips. For some people, especially black women, women of color, these lips are not always just like the our lips up here have changes and variations. Some people got pink lips, some people got soup coolers, some people got tiny lips, some people got brown lips. Some people, some people got them deep purple lips. It's the same variation down here. And so because we keep comparing ourselves again to standards that were never meant for us, if you're looking at pornos and you're looking at white pornos, which is probably the only place that you're seeing vulvas openly, right? Like we're not even talking about educational purposes. Like you've been exposed to that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no one there has anything that's not pink, because that's either altered, they've probably chosen to bleach their lips, they've probably gotten labiaplasty, so we're not seeing
Yeah.
the full range and variation. And so that's why I'm always telling people, question everything, question what's around you, at like, and also respect that what they got is not what I got, but how can I focus more on embracing what I have? Because when you really get your education on, which is what I love to provide people, which I feel is my lane, when I develop VagEsteem, like, yeah, it's great to like share sex stories and all that stuff, which you do find out there. But what I'm trying to do is make sure that whatever you're trying to get into, that you're empowered in knowledge, and you have your knowledge before you go out and do it, or while you're doing it. So when you're talking about, I don't like these lips, like, look at them, like, let me cut them off. Well, at the bottom of these lips, we have glands, which is how we get wet. These are the glands that help keep the juices flowing and the party going. So when we cut these off, and also there are nerve endings here. So some people, it feels good to touch the lips, it feels good to play with
Mm-hmm.
them. So you're just missing out on your pleasure because of some aesthetic that was never, ever, ever made to affirm you, see you, and they don't care what you do. They just want this, and that's the thing. The whole thing is a scam. All of these things are trying to
Yeah.
get you to buy something, shame yourself. Whenever I do VagEsteem classes for older adult women, I mean like women in their like 50s and 60s,
Mm-hmm.
the number one thing they ask me is like, okay, if I'm not supposed to be using all these products, why do they sell them? And I'm like, because they know that you're going to be sitting here feeling insecure about yourself, and they're making money literally off of your insecurity. So like,
Yes.
when I tell them like, oh, you don't need to douche, that's literally causing harm to your internal organs. Like, it can push infection, and if you think there's a scent, it's pushing that infection. The scent is coming from an infection. It's pushing it further into your vaginal tract. It's pushing it closer, and going to be an even bigger problem. They're like, oh, I didn't know that, right? And the reason why they're selling is not because you need it. Not everything that everybody sells is needed.
Hmm. Okay.
They are trying to give you a quick fix solution. They don't care. They don't care if you deal with chronic yeast infections for the rest of your life because of their product. Like, they don't care about that. They want you to buy it because they know that you've been shamed
Yeah.
since. And I teach seventh graders, and this is one of the things that seventh graders bring up. Oh, they smell like fish. So if you're walking around thinking that your stuff smells like fish, when we know a fish scent is an indicative of an infection,
Yeah.
your coochie's supposed to smell like coochie, and it's not supposed to smell like Island Breeze vanilla warm coconut blend mocha macchiato, then you're better able to make some decisions. But we just don't have these conversations. And like you were saying earlier, that I keep coming back to, is that it's all wrapped in shame, and shame will really make you do some things and spend some money
Yeah.
that you don't need to spend.
And you'll be jacked up after you finish spending all that money.
Still jacked up. Still,
Yeah.
you still got the scent. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Once you do all that, the number one thing people come back and say is, "Oh, now I have an even bigger problem." Yeah, because those things were never ever meant to be there. This is
Yeah.
all a ploy. This is all a scam. But we also just never talk about our parts, and
Yeah.
only one set of parts, I feel, which are penises, are highly affirmed. And the thing is that even the way that people with penises act with their parts are ways that we don't necessarily always move with our parts. Like, people with penises will be out here hooping all day, sweaty, and will be like, "What's up? Hey, you want?"
They ain't concerned about how funky they smell.
Meanwhile, we got bird bath, whole bath, in the bathtub, got the body spray, got to get my thing, got. It's like, it's so embedded. And then if ever we have a human condition happening, we apologize. We'll say stuff like, "I'm so sorry, I have hair there. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to shave. Oh, oh, I just I only showered an hour ago. Like, girl, if you don't like lay back and just, but we don't get that type of grace. And we also know, just like the baby today, the thing that I posted today, the baby's talking about if your stuff smells like water, put your cell phone in the sky. If your vagina smells like water, and I'm like, but does your stuff smell like water though? Like that's the real question we need to be asking. Like you into all of this, but like, is your situation? What does your situation smell like? I'm dying to know. I'm dying to know because there is hair, moisture, and skin and sweat glands that everybody has. So why are we wielding shame on only half of the population when literally funkiness happens, sweat happens, smell happens, people have hair, all of these things are here for a reason. What's up? So,
That part. Like everything you have on your body is there for a reason.
so that's the kind of thing that just be getting me. And so it's a journey. I like to say like growing your VagEsteem is a journey, but it does start first with taking a look, getting informed, and saving your money.
Yes. Yes. Although people need to be investing in workshops and resources so that they can learn, so that they can be empowered to make the decisions that are going to be healthy for their body. And, and it's, I have to give her a shout out. Ask a Sex Therapist, DeAndrea Blaylock Johnson's awesome. And one of the things we talked about when we were talking on one of the lives was Jesus loves us and our orgasms. Like, don't let these people tell you that you are not supposed to have a
Okay,
healthy like vaginal health and a healthy, happy, fulfilled
that's right.
sexual experience, whether that is solo or with a partner.
That's right.
Like, you get to have all of that. And
It's a scam.
hey, I mean, and the awesome thing though is you offer workshops that can help people learn how to have all those things. So can you tell us about some of your workshops and services?
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie. So, on my on my website at vagesteem.com, that's VAGESTEEM.com, Vagesteem. I probably put too many E's in there, but you got it, it's two T's. I like to say that like I said, I educate across the lifespan and I have different niche areas, but I have a few classes. One of the classes that our most recent class I did was sex ed for Black girls and femmes, which is essentially healthy relationships. You get to walk through the entire class with us while we're kikiing, we're talking, we're having a great time. But the Sex Ed for Black Girls and Femmes series, which there will be more coming up. I had to give everybody a break and myself during
Yes.
the summertime because people are zoomed out. But that was there, and the reason why I created that series was because of the same things that we were talking about earlier. There's an assumption that you get to be an adult and you learned all these things, but we are grown women who, grown Black girls who don't know about a lot of these basics around healthy relationships. And so my intention is that throughout this series, we just, sit down. That's for free. We sit down and I educate you like you in my classroom. Like we are at the basics. We are learning the things. We are having the conversations in our space formulated just for us, where we can laugh and, of course, have an interactive time where we are just, doing and being ourselves. So look out for more of those, but the recording of that is on my site. It is for the free 99. You'll see
Yes.
some free websites on my free things on my website, and you'll see some paid things. I also wrote a workbook, which is called the guide to better body confidence, sex and love, or situationships, depending on what your situation is. And so that one comes with a video as well. And so it's our manifestation guide, where we're kind of taking some time and really thinking through what is it that I need, doing some reflection work around where did I come from. So just like Charlene, when she asked me like, hey, tell me about how you got here. Well, let me walk you through it. And I've been able to do my hindsight work because I get some time to reflect. So I'm asking everybody with this workbook to take some time, reflect on what was that situationship like, and what did you like about it? What did you love about it? What did you
Mm-hmm.
hate about it? And what are we looking for? Do we want a relationship? Tell me about the relationship to your body. Tell me about the relationship to going to the doctor. So we cover all of those things, and essentially it is your accountability manual, which is guided, that walks you through all of these things. And there's a video that comes with it because I like to write down and manifest all my stuff January 1. So I recorded the video for y'all. It is there so you can walk through it just like you were in the class with us. And then another niche of mine is training other sexual health professionals. And so it is super important that, there are more than one Vanessas out here. I can't be everywhere. And so there are a couple of intensives that I have on my website called, essentially trying to teach sex ed without getting fired and how to not be a white savior in sex ed. Those are the ways that I'm trying to ensure that I'm changing the fields, along with, of course, getting insights from myself. But I want to make sure that there is a network of other life affirming sex educators that are out there to empower people that understand the harm that can be done if we do not teach sex ed in a life affirming way, in a way that sees and appreciates all of our students, and help bring their things and their shame and all of their stuff to the forefront so they can actually be sexually healthy people. So look out for that. And you can follow me on Instagram at VagEsteem. That's VagEsteem too. And we just have courageous conversations all around. And there's a
Yes.
podcast, there's 4 years worth of podcast content. Again, you can find the VagEsteem podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. So just Google it. It's on the website. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's wherever you listen to podcasts. And we have, I would argue and say, like, a lot of the conversations are still the same. A lot of the insights are still the same, but you get a little bit of what you get a good microcosm of what VagEsteem and being a VagEsteem workshop is through listen to the podcast, because we hear each other's stories. We have listener submissions where they're sharing their sound bites on different topics. We're talking about it all on there. So that's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And you guys, you won't have to go hunt or Google for anything because I will have the link. I'm glad you reminded me. So I'll have the link for the podcast as well. So when you all go to SheConfidential.com and you go to podcast season 3 and to this episode guide, you will have all the links to VagEsteem.com, the links to the Instagram page, and the links. I'll add the link for the podcast as well. Because I mean, the work that you do is just like you are saving lives because all
You.
of this is related. People undervalue the importance of talking about sexual health and sexual wellness because it's all related. And it's just, I love that you work with young people as well because that's where the seeds are sown then. That's where that shame starts.
Yep.
And if we want to change young boys and girls so that they aren't walking around saying little crazy stuff like the baby and these other fools,
I'm
we
embarrassed.
gotta catch them
Too much.
early.
It's too much.
Yes, it's so every day it's some foolishness. But then we have inspiring women like Simone Biles, with women like Serena Williams.
Yes.
We've got our Naomi. We've got these women who are saying no more,
No, none.
no more.
What you're not gonna do is
Mm,
that.
that bullshit. So, and we've got Vanessa.
You.
So
And we got
thank you.
Charlene, who's out here bringing all the resources to everybody, and affirming all of our voices and connecting everybody. So we appreciate what you're doing and
Thank
doing the
you.
groundwork, because I know it's not easy to scan and find people and host these conversations. So we see you, we appreciate you, and
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Everybody, please follow VagEsteem on Instagram. The links will be in the description box on YouTube and on the podcast and at SheConfidential.com. I have been chatting with Miss Vanessa, am Charlene Ketchum. This is She Confidential. Thank y'all. Until next time.